Hi, now we're going to talk about the two views in our HTML edit application. You can see that I have the first view, which I've called Root View Controller, up in the application. We're going to talk about these two views, and then we're going to look at the app delegate and see how we get the navigation controller and then the root view controller installed as the navigation controller's root view controller. So this file is called rootviewcontroller.zib. It is the view for our root view controller. So you can see that we have embedded in our main view, we have a text view, which is the full size of the screen, and then we have a toolbar. And this toolbar has three buttons. Actually, it has four bar button items. First, it has a browser button, and then it has a spacer. This is known as a flexible space bar button item. And we get this from our library going down to this control, which is a UI bar button item, but it is called a flexible space bar button item. If we add more buttons, if we add them to the left, they're going to appear on the left. If we add them to the right, they're going to appear on the right of this flexible space. The space is there more or less as a spring. So it will spring any controls apart that we add to a toolbar. So that's the way we get this sort of interface. Now in the browser view controller, we want to look at that. We use a flexible space bar button item as the first item in our toolbar. And then of course we have our save and load buttons. This is a UI web view that's just sitting in our view. And if we look at this, we can see that our browser view is much simpler. We have the flexible space, we have the save bar button item, and then the load bar button item. Now when we look at the controller, we're going to talk about hooking up these controls, which is a little bit different than hooking up other controls. But we'll look at right now, for instance, if we select the save button and right click it, we see that we have sent actions as normal. But now if I delete this, watch what happens. This now says selector, and it expects us to select a selector for this particular sent action for this button item. Now we can click here and drag on the plus button to Files Owner and then pick Send Save Message, which in this case is the proper selector, and then the sent action is going to be Send Save Message. But we notice here that this button is not the same as a rounded rect button. In other words, it doesn't have a touch up inside event. It's all done in the background. The only event is the touching of the button, and that is the only event that can be responded to with an action method. So let's look at the app delegate. When we look at the app delegate, we can look at the header file, and we notice that we have imported the header file for root view controller, but not for browser view controller. The browser view controller is going to be instantiated within the view controller, and when we look at the controllers, we'll look at that instantiation. But right now we want to concentrate on setting up this app delegate. So we have the window property, which we always have, but we've added two properties. We've added a UI navigation controller, and we've called it Nav Controller, and then we've added a root controller instance that we're calling root view controller with a lowercase r. Now when we look at the implementation, the only changes we're going to make are in the did finish launching with options method. First, we've synthesized these, and we've synthesized these with an alias so that we don't access these as ibars. We are accessing these as properties by using the self dot kind of construct. So we set up the self window. This is normal. This is in the boilerplate code. We're going to use init with frame and then get the main screen bounds. Now we instantiate the root view controller. The root view controller, remember, is going to be this controller, not the navigation controller. So the root view controller is going to become the navigation's root view controller, but it is not the navigation controller. So we must set up the root view controller first, and we init with nibname and bundle both nil, because we have a zip file, and that zip file is already there. It's already accessed and reflected within that root view controller. So then we set the controller's title, and the title for the root view controller is text view. Now we're going to add the nav controller. So I already have a nav controller here, self.nav controller. So we allocate an instance of UI navigation controller, and then we init it, we initialize it with the root view controller as the root view controller that we just set up here, text view. The Windows background color is set. That really doesn't matter. We could remove this line because we're never going to see the window. We're only going to see the navigation controller's view. So in the next line, we add the subview self.navcontrollers.view, and this works. We add it to the window, and this works because we have set up our root view controller as the navigation controller's initial root view controller. The window is made key and visible, and then the application is off and running. So this is a brief discussion of how our views are set up, and we'll talk about the interactions between the views and the controllers in our next video. Thank you very much.